NFC East and the AFC West. Nothing but fun and entertainment. Nutmeg, are we ready for another quality conversation?
Ready, Bucks McGee, and ready for a couple reasons because not only are they, the Super Bowl participants, but they are also our feature a couple teams in there that we also love to talk some SH1 hockey stick to you about.
Oh, yes, yes, there is. Good golly. Cannot wait. The AFC West, man. Interesting bunch of teams. So let's get this popping.
Yes. So the first one is we'll lay deference, of course, to the champs here with the Eagles, and they pretty much run this back. The only real change is that Kellen Moore's left, finally got a head coaching job. Pour one out for the fallen homie because, of course, he went down to New Orleans. But hey, beggars can't be choosers, I guess.
Nope. I guess if you want a job, you'll take whatever you can get.
Yeah, and yet again, Jalen Hurts has to start another season with a new OC. So we'll see if that gets off to a rough start. But at least now he starts with a new OC with the added confidence of being Super Bowl champ and Super Bowl MVP. So is there anything at all that makes you think Philly's going to be derailed from another Super Bowl appearance?
I think it just depends on the health. If that team can stay healthy, I you almost have to pencil them into at least the NFC Championship game. The formula is probably going to stay the same. Saquon's going to be the breadwinner, and at that point, Jalen will do his thing. But I think only health derails them.
Now, that's always interesting because Saquon Barkley kind of shrugged off the injury bug, which is something that's been difficult for him to do. So, do you is there what kind of the odds are Saquon really shrugging that off and actually staying like, okay, he's healthy now, he's good, or that was like maybe the plus year of his health, and he's going to go right back to the on again, off again. Okay, he was healthy, now he's going to be hurt this year.
I think he's finally, broken the jinx. Let's be honest, his years in the Giants, he was the guy. And, that's great when you're the guy, but when, they run you into the ground, you're going to get hurt. Like he was the Giants offense. Now with the Eagles, yes, it was great that, he led the charge and, Jalen was almost a complimentary type piece. Like Jalen didn't have to throw for 40 touchdowns and, 4,500 yards. But the fact that they have that ability at quarterback, maybe this year they change it up a little bit and maybe balance the offense out a bit. But I also think it's going to be a week to week thing. If Saquon's the hot guy, you ride that out till some team kind of figures it out a bit, and then you let Jalen do his thing.
It didn't have to throw a lot because yet again the tush push seemed to be unstoppable. Can't figure out why a QB sneak is so hard to defend. It's only been around since the dawn of time, but there was a lot of push in the offseason to ban this. I can't imagine banning a QB sneak. That seems a little tough sell for me. But I mean, our team's actually going to figure out how to guard a QB sneak because it doesn't seem like it's something that should be that difficult.
Well, not to toot the horn, but the only real team to stop it last year was Tampa. So it's one of those things where you got to get lower. You got to get lower than the Eagles, your guys in the trenches. But then, for some teams, they felt it was a safety issue. You got guys, jamming necks and things of that nature. But it's a legal play. So until somebody can, someone else besides Tampa can stop it consistently, I don't know if the league's going to sit there and say, no, you can't run it. So the key to it is going to be getting, the Eagles in third and long. That's the key to it. You don't want to see that play. Stop them on first and second down.
And the other thing is like if if it's a safety issue, you'd think it would be a safety issue across the league. You think other teams would be faced in the same situations. So it's almost bizarre to either think no other team is ever in a goal to go situation, or um, the Eagles are just always in that situation. Like they're just masters of getting 9 yards and leaving the last one, and like everyone else either is getting 5 yards to go, 6 yards to go, and they score, or they get stopped. It's like it's just that imbalance of all the other teams that seem to be in that situation versus Philly.
Well, when you've got the weapons that the Eagles do, it's they just have that ability to next thing you know, it's 3rd and 1 and you've got guys who can just get down low, and Jaylen gets his first down, and they just keep moving. So it's going to be a situation where teams stop Saquon early, get to Jaylen, 2nd down, whatever, and then if you can get them into 3rd and 6, or even 3rd and 4, they're not pushing on 3rd and 4. So
Yeah.
that's what has to be done. So that's what the NFC has got to look to this year.
Yeah, Saquon Craig has scored about 22 touchdowns if if he just finished off some of those runs.
Yeah.
As far as the Eagles' weapons are concerned, I mean, Jalen Hurts has had issues with the tunnel vision on A.J. Brown, so we finally see some diversification between A.J. and Devontae Smith and Goddard.
Oh yeah, I think so. It's going to be probably, like I said, it's going to be a repeat of last year probably until or these teams stop them. It's going to be some run, and then Jaylen will do his thing, and the receivers, those guys get great separation. They're talented. Goddard's a quality tight end, so it might not look like Jaylen throws the ball a ton, but he throws it enough to keep that offense moving, and those guys get their touches.
Yeah. So as we started off with these little preseason previews, we pick a game or a stretch of game that not necessarily could derail a team, but definitely has a magnifying glass put on them. So with the Eagles, we've kind of isolated their first 5 games, which is a little bit of a devil's run here. They start out at home on Sunday night against the Cowboys. I'm sorry, not on Sunday night. That's Thursday night opener. Thursday night opener, of course, as the champs, home against the Cowboys. Then they go to Kansas City. They're back home for the Rams. They go down to Tampa, and then they're home against the Broncos. So they're back and forth, home and road. And that's 5 playoff teams. Well, yeah, actually. Well, I guess the Cowboys weren't, but 4 playoff teams, and of course the Cowboys, who always have the playoff hype behind them. So that's 5 games to start off the season. That's a pretty treacherous stretch, which the Eagles don't always have the best starts in their history, or in recent memory, anyway.
No, and it's going to be, especially at the beginning of the season, it usually takes about 4 games to kind of figure out who you are. So it's going to be interesting right off the bat. They're tested. If they can get through, the scenario, probably 4-1, they're in good shape. If you look at this division, honestly, well, right now people are probably saying Washington is the threat. The Giants are, rebuild mode. We don't know what the Giants are going to be. And then the Cowboys are the Cowboys. They've got their own issues and concerns, we'll talk about. But right now, I think if the Eagles really want to make a statement, 4-1, 5-0, that's what they're going to have to do.
Yeah, and I mean you could say the quote unquote easiest game of that stretch is the Cowboys, but that's on opening night. The home opponent is almost always just a punching bag on opening night because the champs are always come out with steam blowing out of their chest, and of course the Cowboys have all these personnel issues. So it's almost like, okay, they come out, they can beat their chest against the Cowboys trying to figure themselves out, and then they've got these 4 playoff opponents that really could kind of knock them out for sorts.
Yeah, and you never know. Dallas might be able to pull something off. The first game of the season, there's a lot of adrenaline. It's pretty much the last time you get to really celebrate. Last season's Super Bowl victory. Who knows what happens? You would think that Philly would have enough to say, okay, we can handle Dallas, but no one says trap game week 1, but Dallas does have some weapons. They did pick up Pickens in the offseason, so it's not like they're total slouches. If the Eagles don't come with their A game right off the bat, Dallas could steal one.
Yeah. Let's talk about those Cowboys. How about them Cowboys?
Here we go. Here we go. The greatest soap opera on turf.
Yes, indeed. So with the Cowboys, they had a pretty quiet offseason. You did mention George Pickens, but that was almost just a dump from Pittsburgh trying to get rid of him. And other than that, they didn't have a ton of splash, but they still haven't signed Micah Parsons. And we're used to this story from the Cowboys because it took them a while to sign CeeDee Lamb. It took them up to the day before the season, if I'm not mistaken, to give Dak his $60 million extension. Uh, so are they going to get Micah Parsons done? Did Jerry finally ran out of money? Like why now is all of a sudden the well dried up?
I don't think it's the well drying up. I think it's a pissing contest, and Jerry just loves the drama. Either that or Jerry just loves the drama and loves to draw this out because it's just eyes on Dallas at this point. And I've heard people talk about it. It's almost like Jerry runs this team as an entertainment entity first and a football team second. Like he doesn't care that it's football and they've got to win games. As long as you're talking about Dallas year round, it's money. Let's be real. It's more about the show. So you would have thought they would have said, okay, let's get Parsons paid, let's move on. But nope. And now you're getting to the point where we're in the last week 3 of the preseason, basically the end. So if he doesn't start getting some reps quick, and we saw it with CD last year, he late in camp kind of got hurt, kind of got banged up a bit, wasn't his usual self for a while. The way this defense is, they need Parsons. So if they're going to sit here and play this game, you're better off just trading them. Like, honestly, if I'm Dallas, I would just trade them. Why not? Try to, you're not going to get the Herschel Walker haul from, 30 years ago, but you'll get a couple first-round picks. You can sit there and build your team up. More parts might be better for you, and let Micah go where he goes.
Yeah, and to further solidify the whole, it's our circus, let's keep people in the ring sort of thing. I mean, they dragged out their head coaching search too. They finally got rid of Mike McCarthy, and they waited forever. They finally just tagged Brian Schottenheimer, and it's like, well, this is just another coach that's just going to be Jerry's puppet. Like Jerry just he didn't want to go after Belichick. He didn't want to go after this big fish. No pun intended to the Parcells days, but like he just wants, like, Jerry just can't. It's like Jerry can't deal with having a head coach that's gonna attract more limelight than his own will.
Jerry wants to be the guy, and if there's anybody with just a bit of attitude, he doesn't. He's like, he doesn't want to deal with it. So yeah, you bring in Schottenheimer, and you think maybe you want to give the guy a benefit of a doubt, but yeah, everyone's gonna. If they go, 0-2, 1-4, they're gonna be like, oh, just Jerry's puppet. This guy can't do it, and it's gonna be the same thing as last year. It's tough. It's really a tough scenario. At some point, Jerry's got to say, you know what? Let me hire somebody to run this team. Let me just be the owner. Let me sit in the box and just enjoy myself. But until that happens, this is going to be a yearly occurrence. And if Parsons gets traded, I think you're going to see some real issues starting in Dallas.
Yeah, I mean, they changed up the running game a little bit, although not in a big way. Bring in Javonte Williams, who I don't know is that much of an improvement over Rico Dowdle. I mean, he certainly has a lot more health concerns than Rico Dowdle does. But they turned the offense into just high-flying circus act. So, I mean, is the Dak show just going to be nothing more than just watching fantasy points?
Yeah, but the run game, I'm not sold on. I'm really not. They've got some guys, but are you telling me you got 3 guys and you're going to hope those 3 guys turn into a 1,000-yard rusher? Like, what does the run game become? I think they absolutely need a solid run game. So it's going to be interesting to see that, because if that just falls flat, doesn't matter. Dak's going to throw 22 picks or something. It's going to be hideous there.
It'll be one the whole season. Well, I guess as it usually is, will be one constant Dak Prescott meme.
Yep. And then, Pickens isn't going to get his touches. He's going to start his whole thing like he did in Pittsburgh, and it's just going to be a hot mess. And then, of course, everyone will talk, well, this all started because you traded Micah. But if you're not going to pay the guy, trade him. This is the most important part. You either want him or you don't. Pay him or move on.
It is crazy to me. You'd think Pickens would just be sitting there with catches aplenty just because CD demands so much coverage.
And what might happen is if Dallas's defense falls apart, he may get the touches because it's Dallas playing from behind.
Yeah. Which of these contracts that has legged out so much is probably the most important to Dallas? The two, one of the two they've completed, or this one that still has yet to be resolved?
Well, I think if you look at it, out of the three, CeeDee Lamb's is the best contract. I think he's on par with receivers. The Dak, I wouldn't have paid him $60 million a year. I don't think he's that guy, but they did, and now you're all pro, defensive player. You don't want to pay. The guy's incredible, but you don't want to pay him for whatever reason. And there's all this. Well, he said this, but he said that. Nobody knows, but everybody's on Micah's side. So for me, you go CeeDee was, even though it took forever, was smart money. Dak was just stupid money. I don't know if you were just doing it to do it. And now, whatever you pay Micah, like he deserves what he gets, but what are you going to pay him?
Yeah. Quick shout out because Blue Ice hopped on. We did talk NFC South last night, but I don't know if the Carolina Panthers are. Maybe they'll surprise people. Who knows? It could happen, as they say in Angels in the Outfield.
That's why you play the games.
Yeah. Now Dallas's stretch here.
Mm-hmm.
We've isolated as weeks 12 through 17. Now, weeks 12 through 17 are the Eagles, 2 home games. They come out of the bye with a road game against the Raiders. They have back-to-back home games against the Eagles and the Chiefs. And then a Thursday nighter in Detroit, followed by a home game in Minnesota, a home game with the Chargers, and on the road to face Washington before they finish out in the Meadowlands. So Philly, Chiefs, Lions, Minnesota, Chargers, and Washington. That is, 1, not the easiest stretch, but 2, not the easiest stretch when you're in theory trying to sew a playoff spot.
Exactly, and that is going to be tough. For them, they're probably going to have to win out on the division games. They're going to have to. I don't trust this team. I think they'll put up a ton of points. It's tough, man. I don't like it. And until the Micah situation is fixed, you almost have to look at this team as incomplete because you don't know what you're going to get. And if that offense, if they can't run the ball and it just becomes a throw fest, those teams are going to feast on them defensively. So you hope you go 3-2 maybe.
Not to rub salt in the wound, but you say win out the division games when we're saying like we really don't think they're a better team than Washington or Philly. So that's 4 games that they're going to be in a real tough spot to take some of them.
Yeah, no, it is. And because of how Dallas has been run and how this whole offseason's gone, I don't think anybody trusts them. I think everyone just sees them as, their fantasy greatness, but wins and losses, I don't know. That end of that bit of schedule is tough, and they're just going to have to hope that luck rides their way.
Yeah. Now, a team that luck or fate even was very easy on last year was Washington. And, I mean, it's easy to just focus on Jayden Daniels because he was so wonderful as a rookie. It's almost impossible to envision him having a sophomore slump. I'm sure there'll be some kind of a sophomore slump just because everyone goes through it. But it's pretty hard to envision it, at least right now. But let's be a little different with Washington. They bring in Deebo Samuel, which I'm thinking like, okay, this is perfect because he can play on the inside. Scary Terry can stay outside. And all of a sudden now Scary Terry, they're having serious contract disputes with. He even went as far at one point as said, trade me, or at least like pursuing trying to get out of his no trade clause or whatever the case may be. So like this wide receiver room in Washington, which looked to be extremely beneficial for Jayden going into year 2, now looks very volatile.
And Scary Terry's that offense, man. He's a great wide receiver. Like you said, you bring in Deebo, and it was like, ooh, okay, now with the way Deebo plays, Swiss Army, it should be great. They should be good to go. He's not there. They haven't re-signed him. It sounds like they're gonna release Brian Robinson Jr. So the run game is going to be interesting. Looks like they're going to go with a couple of young guys. So the run game will be interesting. Tight end. I think they still have Ertz, year older. So it's gonna be interesting. I don't like you said. You don't think he's gonna regress, but was last year more of like a things just fell well for you and you just caught hot at the right time. The Hail Mary against Chicago and all of that. I don't know. They're a talented team, but I think you're really gonna see, what this team is this year, if it was a fluke or not. I think for them not to be a fluke, they're gonna have to win at least 11 games.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, and I mean it's not the worst schedule, but they do have quite a few quality opponents in there. So if they get to 11 games, it's going to be a very hard-earned 11 games.
No, it totally is. So then at that point, if they do that, I think the Eagles are going to win. Probably 12-13. So at that point, yeah, they're going to be a strong wild card team. I don't know if they're ready to win the division. I don't know, especially with the Scary Terry situation and the run game. The run game, if it's solid, these young guys, can basically pull off the great runs and stuff of that nature. Because Robinson was a solid back. I thought for that offense he was good. I don't understand the reason for dropping him, but I
No,
guess
his issue to me was just health.
I guess they feel the young guys are where they're going to go, and maybe they just have a little extra pop in their run. We'll find out, but I think they'll run that offense in a way where Jalen doesn't have to do everything. Their defense is solid. Bobby Wagner's a year older, so you got a little bit of age on some spots, but if they just got to play within themselves. I think they're probably a 10-11 win team.
No,
Could be wrong.
to me, their biggest detriment last year was their offensive line, especially in the playoffs. Jayden was, I mean, it's amazing they even got to the end of the championship game just because Jayden was running around like a chicken with his head cut off.
No, that's true. Very true. Now I think that might be a reason why they're going. They might be going a little run heavy. They may be having Jalen say, you know what, let's have you hand off the ball a bit more. Let's get a little more balanced, and let's see what happens.
And that could also play into Debo's role because not even just from a Swiss Army knife perspective, but just to have somebody in shorter to get the ball out of his hands faster.
No, definitely. But at that point, that offense is still missing something because the reason for bringing Debo in was because you had Scary Terry. Now, if he's not there, okay, great. You bring Debo in. Debo is what, your de facto number one. That's great. But you had your offense. I don't know how much more it's improved.
Yeah. Now the Brown boys look great when they're just kind of like the extra guys that fall out of a mismatch with no coverage or single coverage, but they don't. And they look okay when it's off of Terry, but they don't look as good when they're off of Debo, especially when Debo's not going to be going downfield.
Yeah, exactly. So their priority is getting Scary Terry signed and then going from there. But they'll no doubt be in the conversation for division for the most part of the year.
Yeah. Now, as far as their race to 10, 11, even 12 games, not only is that going to be tough to get, but it's also going to be on display for everyone to see because this is not, and our stretch of games here is not necessarily a stretch of games. It's the fact that they have at least 5 primetime games for a team that was supposed to do nothing last year, surprised everyone to get that kind of primetime love is really kind of astounding in a second-year quarterback's game. They've got a Thursday nighter in week 2 in Lambeau. They've got a Monday nighter at home against the Bears, a rematch of the Hail Mary game. They've got a Monday nighter in week 8 in Arrowhead. The very following week, they're Sunday night under the lights hosting Seattle. I guess technically this isn't prime time, but it's very much national air. They go to Madrid, the first ever NFL game in Spain, to play the Dolphins. After the bye week, they're back under the lights on Sunday night hosting Bo Nix and the Broncos, a sophomore matchup. And then their Eagles games are two of the final three games of the year, and they're both TBD. They're both in a flex role. So I'm sure at least one of those games is going to be on some kind of national air, if not prime time. So
Well,
Washington, what's the question here? Should we talk? Should we ask if they're worth all this light, or should we ask if they're deserving of it as far as they've got melting underneath or rising to the occasion?
the NFL is hoping that they're worth it. We're going to find out if they for some reason bottom out this year. You're gonna when it's time to flex, you'll see a lot of flex. You hope that they are that good and that the 5 games are warranted. I don't know. I think I would have probably given them 3, maybe 4. And it's one of those things where you say, okay, now are they perennial? Are they legitimate every year? Because if they're on the track to like 7 and 10 and just bottom out, no one's. It's football. People will watch it, but it's going to be a disappointment for sure.
No, and like I think not to be the glass half empty type of person, but I think of this in like as far as two situations because you had the Colts, which were always a primetime feature back in the Peyton Manning days. They had about 5, 6, 7 primetime games. He has his next situation, and they were abysmal, and they were in primetime. All these games that the NFL couldn't flex out, and they're awful games. And you
Mm-hmm.
also had a couple of years later, we bring in Andrew Luck. Washington brings in Robert Griffin Jr., and that was a lot of hype. And I don't remember if they got any primetime game necessarily, but Robert Griffin Jr., who plays very similar to Jayden Daniels, busted his leg and was I can't even say he was really never the same. He barely even played after that. So, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's a very dangerous game to play, especially with a team that had offensive line issues. The star gets hurt. Also, those primetime games really don't look good.
Yeah. So it's, of course, injury is part of the game, but if you feel that Washington's that up and coming elite team, then, the NFL has put their chips on that and given them 5 to show it.
Yeah, they don't have oh, what was that young man's name that almost beat your Bucks in their Super Bowl run? They don't have him anymore to fall back on. Oh, we seem to have lost Bucks McGee. We'll give him a second to try and get back in as we continue the discussion of the NFC East. We'll give Bucks McGee a chance to try to get back into the feed. Internet is can be a cruel mistress at times. Stand by, folks, if you're watching on replay. We'll get Bucks McGee back in here. We may have to end this show a little early, folks. We'll start up another live when Bucks McGee is back. So stay tuned. We'll get another live going soon.